There's something serious going on in the oil market, and I'm talking about gasoline, diesel. All these things are being affected. And why is that? Because we have a war for oil going on, or at least a war against oil going on. We have some big updates of what's happening here inside the United States, as well as what's happening overseas. Refineries are shutting down right and left, and this is causing some serious problems. And you're going to start getting impacted by this at the gas pump. We got a lot to cover. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report, everyone. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. And on this channel, we're covering things that the news media doesn't cover. And we do things more in depth here as an accountant by trade. We get into the numbers and what's actually going on so that you have the data and not just somebody's opinion. All right, so what are the numbers? We have gas at 4-month highs, gas price-wise, and that's pretty significant. Gas prices had come down for a bit, but now we're ramping back up price-wise, and, well, this week was no different. We're seeing oil prices going up significantly here in the U.S. Why? Because oil stockpiles have dropped dramatically in the past week. We lost 5.5 million barrels of oil inside the U.S. network of inventory. And with half of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve empty right now, any kind of fluctuations in the market of oil inside the United States is going to take more and more of an impact as well. And we're talking about foreign oil. We're talking about oil coming in mostly from outside the U.S. because U.S. refineries can't really process U.S. oil. So the fracking oil that's coming out of the platforms in Pennsylvania here, West Virginia, Texas, a lot of these the fracking oil is the wrong type of oil to go into refineries. So we're importing oil from overseas, from Saudi Arabia and other countries in the Middle East. We're bringing that oil in so we can run our refineries. So if you're driving down the road in your car, your car is probably not powered by American gasoline. Well, American processed gasoline, but that oil that made the gasoline probably came from Saudi Arabia or came from another Middle Eastern country, or possibly Russia. But we won't talk about that. So we have some serious problems happening here with oil. What is going on? Well, you probably could put one and one together and figure out that the reason why we're having trouble getting oil from abroad is due to the Houthis shooting drones and missiles at anything that drives past their little neck of the woods. They're blocking the Suez Canal. And so tankers and natural gas ships have to go the long way around Africa. If you had a highly explosive cargo, would you want to drive your ship past somebody who might start shooting at you? Probably not. Now, if you have a container ship or you're carrying like iron ore in a big pile on the deck of your bulk carrier, yeah, you might be like, well, let's just try zipping past. It'll be fine. But if you have a tanker loaded up with oil, you're not going to be so glib about that. You're not going to take it right through there. And this is causing serious problems. We're running out of tankers. With tankers having to go the long way around, it takes them longer for each run, which means you need more tanker ships. And there just aren't enough tankers to go around. So the United States is not receiving tanker drop-offs in the U.S. nearly as fast as we used to before. So we're starting to see U.S. oil inventories drop even further. Now, we sold off half of our Strategic Petroleum Reserve to win the past election, but now we're seeing the overall stocks of oil dropping. But it's not just oil stocks. Not only did we lose 5.5 million barrels of oil, but we lost 3.7 million barrels of gasoline from our stockpiles. We're now about 2% below where we are gasoline-wise for this time of year against the 5-year average. That means we have a noticeable amount less of gasoline. Now, gasoline doesn't sit around forever, and so once it's produced, it needs to get to the cars relatively quickly. But we're entering into the driving season with less gasoline than what we normally have. And why is that? Not only do we have less oil, but our refineries, many of our refineries are still offline. We're moving into maintenance period right now, but we're not used to seeing quite so many refineries being offline. And one of the big ones is that we just had Houston, Texas come offline. Their total energy refinery down there, 238,000 barrels per day. They had a leak and they had to shut down a number of the units there. It was just overhauled and reopened in November. So it just got a nice refurbish, and they've been having nothing but problems since they reopened. So this isn't the first problem they've had since November. They actually had an issue back in January that caused a lot of problems, and they're having a problem again. They're trying to plug some leaks and try to repair some of the damage from those leaks. AOL.com. Did you know that AOL is still actually out there? I don't know. I saw that and it put a smile on my face like, hey, AOL still actually does something online. Anyway, you younger people, you don't understand. But AOL reports that U.S. refineries have been impacted by severe weather and power losses. And that's a reference to our 435,000 barrels per day refinery, the BP refinery that was shut down back in February. Now, we're not expecting to see them back fully until the end of this month. And so, as you can see, when refineries have an unexpected shutdown, and that's what happened, was the power just got cut to the refinery, and they just started having to flare off the oil that was in the midst of processing. You can't just shut those things down. And so they had to burn off a whole bunch, and that was in order to limit the damage done to the refinery itself. But it has taken them over a month to repair the damages to the refinery, and they're hoping to be back up to full production, like I said, by the end of this month. But that is a huge refinery. That's one of the largest refineries in the United States. 435,000 barrels per day refinery is one of the top refineries. I forget if it's the biggest. I think it's like close to being the biggest inside the United States. It's definitely the biggest inside, inside land-wise, the United States. Most of our big refineries are on the coast because that's where the oil gets offloaded. But this one is inside the United States, inside the continental U.S. So, and mostly its feedstock comes from Canada. So we haven't had that refinery online. That's been impacting gasoline prices in the Midwest and all across like Northeast and stuff like that, where a lot of the gasoline goes to. But it's not just the United States, right? I said this is a global problem, and it is. While we have some refineries coming online in the Middle East, we've seen in the past week a bunch of refineries go kablooey over in Russia. Russia is one of the largest or the largest oil producing countries in the world. It's them or Saudi Arabia, I forget. One of the top. But so Russia has historically refined a bunch of their oil, and not only for domestic use, but also for export to neighboring countries and Europe. But Europe has been supposedly not importing any of their diesel and gasoline and jet fuel, but that's been a little squishy. But we're seeing that Ukraine has been firing drones and missiles at Russian refineries. Now, they've done that off and on over the past several years, but over the past, just since the beginning of this year, they've lost a bunch of their refineries. And so we're looking at over 7% of the refineries in Russia are down right now. And that is starting to, and that's dropping even further. I don't believe that counts the refineries that were hit this morning. 2 big refineries were hit this morning over in Russia. We're looking at, they are already down before this morning, 370,000 barrels per day of refining capacity. Lukoil had a refinery that was hit on Tuesday. A crude oil processing unit in some place I can't pronounce on Tuesday was hit as well. Fuel and energy facility in Oryol region on, I'm not sure if that was, I think that was late Monday was hit. But then Wednesday, we also had an oil refinery, a large oil refinery hit on near Moscow on Wednesday. But the big thing is this morning, 2 more refineries were hit and ablaze in Russia. So that's impacting even more. That could impact a significant portion of the oil production inside Russia. So they're probably going to be exporting more oil, and they're going to have access to less reserves. And just the fact that Ukraine and its allies, I'm sure the targeting is being suggested by the United States and its allies who have surveillance and understanding of how the oil refining process works in Russia, what are critical infrastructure, that kind of thing. But the fact that they're targeting these refineries shows that that's probably not going to stop. They're probably going to continue to attack refineries going forward for a number of weeks or however long they're planning on doing this. But they're definitely targeting Russia's refining capacity. If they don't have any diesel on the front lines, then that means it's going to slow down their offensives. It's going to slow down their ability to respond to Ukraine. So that's clearly a strategy that they're going after. But that means that Russia is going to be producing a lot less diesel, gasoline, and it's going to impact world stockpiles as well. We're also seeing that sanctions on Iran are biting even harder, so that means it's going to be harder for them to export oil. And we're even seeing India getting on board because they have refused to buy Russian ESPO grade oil, which is higher grade oils, and the grade right below that, it's some Russian name, they're not importing that either. And so India over the past 2 months has not imported any of these higher grades of oil. And that is really impacting Russia because Russia is trying to export the oil that it can, and India has been purchasing a lot of this up. But I don't know what leverage the United States and its allies has gotten on India recently. But whatever it is, we're seeing that India is moving away from the cheap oil from Russia. They owe Russia a whole bunch of money that they're not paying, at least yet, due to issues with transfers and stuff like that. But how much of that's intentional? That's another question. So this is definitely going to impact oil prices. If India is going to buy oil from other countries, that means that it's going to dry up supply elsewhere. And if Russia can't export that oil, it just means it's going to be cut off from the world markets. All that to say, what's the bottom line? Expect higher gas prices in the near future. Higher gas and diesel prices are probably going to be hitting you soon, if not this week. We're going to be seeing higher prices for the next bit. We'll keep an eye on the refineries and see if they come back online and if they get everything going again, or if they continue to have problems. Now, we're seeing Boeing having all these mysterious problems, and it looks like sabotage. I'm starting to think that. Now, it could be that they have systemic problems with repairs and installations of stuff, and that's a possibility too. But it's looking more and more, just as China is jumping in the game of civilian airliners, we're seeing suddenly Boeing jets are suddenly having a whole bunch of problems. It looks like there could be institutional sabotage by China or other, but probably China. And we're seeing more and more oil refinery issues. And is that potentially sabotage? Russia could be waging a shadow war back against the United States. As Russian oil refineries go kablooey, we could be seeing more and more problems with refineries here in the United States. We had that gas terminal down in, was it Louisiana or Texas, that had a significant problem right after the natural gas pipeline, Russian natural gas pipeline, went kablooey as well. So it looks like we're seeing this tick for tat, and there's definitely a lot of precedence for this. The United States and its allies in the Persian Gulf have played that game with Iran, where an Iranian tanker would have a problem, something explodes, and then suddenly a tanker or two over docked in Dubai or UAE suddenly explodes, and everyone's just kind of like, oh yeah, that happened, whatever. It's like, wait a minute. Somebody went up alongside a tanker with explosives and blew up that tanker, and all of the countries are just kind of like, yeah, we don't want to talk about that. It's just like, what do you mean? And then suddenly an Iranian tanker goes kablooey again. And then it's just interesting to see the shadow war, tick for tat kind of thing going back and forth. So as we see Russian refineries go up in flames, I'm worried that we're going to see American refineries go up in flames more and more over the coming weeks and months. So that's just me kind of reading the tea leaves right now. So expect higher gas prices already, but if we see more refinery issues going forward, those prices could go even a lot higher. All right, friends, that's what I got for you today. If you found that useful, please make sure you hit that thumbs up button. If you want to check out another video from this channel, please see me over there. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report.